Hello, welcome in Weaker Nursing tutorial. Today we are going to discuss about the human body tissues. And the outline of this tutorial will be as first we will define the tissue, then we will talk about the types and the function of different tissues. So what is a tissue? A tissue can be defined as it is a group of cells based on similar structure and function. As we know that human body is a complex structure and it contains trillions of cells. When some cells having similar structure and function comes together and form a group, this group is known as tissue. Let's take an example. Here is a single cell. Here is a group of cells, and in this group each cells have similar structure and function. When they comes together, this is known as tissue. Types of tissue. Tissue can be categorized on the basis of their shape, size and function. As we know that human body cells have many types and they form a large number of the group in the body. But here in this short tutorial we will discuss about the four main basic types of the tissues, and these are: Number 1, epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue forms the lining and covering of different organs. For example, these tissue make the lining of blood vessels, our GI tract, lungs, and these tissue are also present in some gland as well. If we talk about the function of epithelial tissue perform three specific functions. Number 1, protection. Number 2, secretion, and number 3, absorption. Epithelial tissue can also be categorized into two subtypes, and these are: number 1, simple epithelial tissue, and number 2, stratified epithelial tissue. Simple epithelial tissue contains single layer of the cells, while stratified epithelial tissue contains multiple layers of the cells. Simple epithelial tissue can also be categorized into three subtypes. Number 1, squamous epithelium. Squamous epithelium is composed of single layer of the flattened cell. These epithelial tissue present in our heart, blood vessels and lymph vessels as well. Number 2, cuboidal epithelial tissue. It is composed of cube-shaped cell, and these tissue present in our kidney tubule and some gland as well. Number 3, columnar epithelial tissue. Columnar epithelial tissue composed of rectangular shaped cells, and these tissues are present in the lining of different cavities of body. Stratified epithelial tissue can also be categorized into two subtypes. Number 1, transitional epithelium, and number 2, stratified squamous epithelium. Transitional epithelial tissue are present in the transitions of muscles of different organs, while the stratified squamous epithelium can be divided into two types, that is keratinized stratified epithelium. Keratinized stratified epithelium is present in the dry surface of our body, and number 2, non-keratinized stratified epithelium, and this type of tissue is present in the moist surface of our body. The second type of tissue is known as connective tissue. Connective tissue are the most abundant type of the tissue in human body. Their function is to bind different structures. The different types of the cell involved in the connective tissue are fat cell, fibroblast, macrophages, and mast cell. If we talk about the function of connective tissue, these tissue perform following functions. Number 1, binding and structure support. Number 2, protection of underlying parts. Number 3, transportation of nutrients. And number 4, insulation of the nerve cells. The third type of the tissue is known as muscular tissue. These tissues are present in our muscles of the body. Muscle tissue are involved in the locomotion. These tissues produce movement within the body and for the body itself. If we talk about the function of muscular tissue, these tissues perform following function. Number 1, movement of the body. Number 2, movement within the body. Number 3, strength for the body. And number 4, these tissues help in the food digestion. Types of muscular tissue. Muscular tissue can also be divided into 3 main types, and these are: number 1, skeletal muscle tissue, number 2, smooth muscle tissue, and number 3, cardiac muscle tissue. Skeletal muscle tissue are described as skeletal because they form the muscle which are responsible for the movement of bones. These tissues form the voluntary muscles. Number 2, smooth muscle tissue. Smooth muscle tissue are from the muscles which are responsible for involuntary movement of different organs, including our diaphragm, lungs, blood vessels, and intestine. The third group of muscular tissue is known as cardiac muscle tissue. Cardiac muscle tissue are present in our heart. They are also involuntary in nature, and these tissues are responsible for the contraction and relaxation of the heart. The fourth group of the tissue is known as nervous tissue. Nervous tissue are found in the nervous system. These tissues are responsible for transportation of information in the body. If we talk about the function of the nervous tissue, the basic function of the nervous tissue is transportation of information in the body. Nervous tissue can also be categorized into 2 subtypes. Number 1, excitable tissue, and number 2, non-excitable tissue. Excitable tissue, these tissue forms the neurons. They initiate, receive, and transmit information. While non-excitable tissue, these tissue help and support the neurons. If you have any question, please ask in comment section.